Welcome to the A to Z Running Podcast, where we help runners thrive. I'm Andi.
And I am Zach. And up next, pro marathoner Dakotah Lindwurm discusses how to develop a winning mindset and more. And in the world of running, U.S. 6K champs, Rabat Diamond League, and a marathon full of problems. Hey, don't forget that we want to feature your questions on air. We do a Q&A episode at the end of every month. And if you want to be a part of that, just go to AtoZrunning.com/question and send us a note. Tell us what you're thinking about training, running, racing, nutrition, the stuff that you do or the stuff that you wonder about. And we'll feature it and answer it on air.
Yeah. And we love to get feedback from you. So we really appreciate when you reach out and tell us how the episodes have been helping you become a better runner. From Claire, she wrote this on Instagram: "You will become a more intuitive runner when you train based on your effort." She was quoting us at AtoZrunning. "Well, learning to not look at the watch, I'm finding more time to take in the view. After not reaching my goal at one of her races last December, I have done some reflecting and not running my easy runs that she hadn't been doing her easy runs easy, and there were some alarm bells that went off. Back to the drawing board and working on becoming a more intuitive runner. How to Run by Effort podcast with Andi and Zach helped me understand it all a little better."
Thank you, Claire. Sorry about the tough experience, but the lessons learned are always important, good, bad, and otherwise.
Yeah. So there's a couple of races coming up that we want to mention because we've been loving connecting with you at races, and we'll be at a couple of these. The Brian Deemer Run on June 11th. That's a 5K, and there's a kid race and a 1K steeple. GVSU Redemption Track Meet also on the 11th in the evening. These are both in the Grand Rapids area. And then Johnny's Run, June 24th, directed by previous podcast guest Johnny Agar in Ada, Michigan.
Excellent. Excited about the summer racing. It's always a fun time. Hey, by the way, if you're thinking about racing and exciting things, you may have heard rumblings that there is a new race video, and it is in fact available now.
What? I haven't seen it yet.
At the moment that you are hearing us say these words, all you have to do is go to YouTube, look for AtoZrunning, and you'll find it on our channel. It's the Bayshore Marathon. So when we do this, what I do is I run with a GoPro. Many of you know this because you see me carrying it as I'm running. And while I'm in the midst of the race, I'm occasionally recording. I'm not recording the entire time. Yeah. Many have asked that. How do you record the whole time? No, I'm not doing that. You would not enjoy it. And it wouldn't go well for me.
Because it wouldn't be like a good course tour either because you're running. So
well, I'm like holding it in my hand.
Yeah.
So anyway, what I do is I give occasional updates throughout the race. And it's speculation about how I think the race is going to end up. It's comments about the strategy and how it's playing out or not. It's sometimes conversations with the runner next to me.
Is this like a new kind of reality show?
No.
I just ruined it for you.
But if you would like to see that, you in fact can. And here's the key. So head to YouTube, look for AtoZrunning. But here's the key thing is we're always very curious with these things. If you watch that video and you think to yourself, I would have loved it if he would have talked about blank. Let us know in the comments. Like, flood the comments of that video. Here, I say that, but I mean, we never get flooded comments on any videos. But maybe this one will be new. Put a comment and say, hey, I wish you would have said this, or hey, tell us more about this. You know, things like that, because that's how we're going to know what's the most interesting thing to do in those videos. And you guessed it, I'm going to continue doing that. Like basically every time I race, if I can. Now, I have found that there's a critical threshold of how hard I can run and still have enough breath to say intelligent, well, let's not give myself too much credit, intelligible things. And so I don't think I could do this for an all-out 5K. I've learned that. But probably could handle it for just about anything else. So I'm going to keep trying.
All right. Looking forward to it. On to the main topic. Today's topic is a winning mindset. Now, you may be saying, hold up, Andi, not everyone can win races. And you're right. I'm not winning races either. So the idea of a winning mindset transcends actually winning a race or even the place that you come in a race. And Dakotah, she's a professional runner, and she talks about how she utilizes this mindset, even though she does win races, spoiler alert. But also she helps develop it in her athletes that she coaches too. And she was generous to share with us that process. About our guest, Dakotah Lindwurm, she's a professional runner and coach, as I mentioned, and she's with Minnesota Distance Elite. I was recently able to meet her before the 25K championships in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And we met there, but then we were able to do this interview in person in Minneapolis later, not even a full week later. So that was really cool. She placed third at the U.S. 25K championship, so a podium finish. And just weeks prior to that, Dakotah finished 14th among all the female runners at Boston Marathon in 2:29:55. And in 2021, Dakotah was the Grandma's Marathon champion in a time of 2:29:04. And that's coming up, and she's planning on running that again. So we'll make sure
after
that
Boston. Nice.
Yeah. So we're going to make sure that we follow up with that. And I did want to mention, because we're on a Grandma's theme, her debut was at Grandma's, and it was 2:34:02.
That's a fast debut.
Yeah, fantastic. And a couple other things I wanted to mention. She's running USATF 20K championship, and in NCAA's she was 6th place in the 10,000. So she's been at this a long, long time. So let's talk to Dakotah. Hi, Dakotah. Welcome to the A to Z Running Podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Well, we're super excited because we're actually doing this in person.
Yes.
So listeners, if you hear things going on, it's because we actually get to meet in real life.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, super fun. So Dakotah just ran a couple weeks ago the 25K championships, was 4th place, and I got to meet her, or 3rd place, and I got to meet her in person. And then now we're connecting again here in Minneapolis. So super exciting. Congrats on that podium finish.
Yeah, thanks. It was a really hard day out there. I think a lot of people had a tough time, but I was happy I was able to string together an okay race to place 3rd.
Well, it was super strong in my opinion because you had the loneliness, and then you also had the extreme heat, which is nothing to scoff at, especially physiologically what happens to us in humidity. So super great performance there. Well, today we're going to be talking about having a winning mindset because Dakotah's also a coach. And I was doing some research and I saw this idea of winning mindset, and I wanted to dive into that further with you. So what is a winning mindset?
I think it's really hard to say in like one sentence what a winning mindset is. I think it's kind of like an umbrella term for just the mindset you have on race day, because there's so many things that you can't control on race day, the weather, how you're feeling, those kind of things. But the one thing you can control is what you're thinking and how you're speaking to yourself. So I think just having a winning mindset is being like as positive as possible in the situation that you're in, I guess. And there's so many different aspects to how you can stay positive and have that winning mindset, because having a winning mindset doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win the race. But you can have a win on the day personally, even if it's not coming in first place.
So when you are talking to your athletes and you are defining your own goals for a season, do you have transcendent goals to time goals?
So for goals with my athletes and with myself, I always have 3 goals as a minimum. I have an A goal, a B goal, and a C goal. A goal is like, this is the best day ever. I'm on top of the world. A B goal is like, I could walk away. And that could, an A goal can be a place, it could be a time. It's whatever you want. A B goal is still kind of a place or time goal. But it's like I can be happy with this, but I know I can do better. But a C goal is always something within your control. So I tell my athletes, make it something like, at every mile mark, name something you're grateful for, or walk away from the race, no matter what you did, being proud of how you felt and how you spoke to yourself. And so I like to always have that one goal that is completely within your control, so that at the end of the day you can say, this is one thing I did right, this is one win I had on the day.
That's super powerful because things don't always go our way.
Right.
And if we can train our minds to be positive, then we're able to do that in races. So I'm guessing that you also talk about this for training, to train your mind to have this winning mindset, so to speak. So what are some things like in training that you do or you employ to help you have a winning mindset when it comes to race day?
Yeah, I mean, every time you go out for a run, you're practicing for race day. So I'm putting all of these little things into effect, like having a mantra. My mantra is always, I am strong, I am fast, my speed will last. So when I'm in the middle of a workout and things are hard and I'm tired and I want to quit, I just try to rhythmically tell myself that over and over and over, and that's something I do on race day then, because it's all just practice for the big show of the marathon or the whatever race you're going to run. So that's a big one, is the mindset of just having that mantra ready.
Can you talk us through any times that you have wrestled with that winning mindset, maybe in a race?
Oh, absolutely. So in 2018, I was on the starting line of CIM and did not have my day. My legs were cramping up, I was throwing up, I had a blister. It was just the worst situation possible for me, and I ended up dropping out at like mile 20, and it was my debut marathon. So that was really disappointing for my first time out there to really just not have it, and I ended up giving up, which is something that I look back at and am mad at myself about, but have accepted. But after that was when I like really started to dive into the mindset thing, because it's scary to try again after you failed. And what I've realized now over the years is when I'm standing on a starting line, I'm gonna look down the barrel of the gun, so to speak, with knowing that I've done everything I could on race day, to get to race day, and then at the end of the day, regardless of if I win, lose, or draw, my family loves me, my friends love me, and I'm going to have the courage to get on another starting line and try it again if I fail. So I think that's really, really important, and that's the biggest thing I learned from CIM, is that even though I failed, like there's a million other races I can try again.
Yeah, and you've had a lot of those and a lot of success. So can you talk us through a successful winning mindset, what that looked like for you in one of your better races?
Yeah, I mean, in a good race, when I feel mentally strong, I'm constantly telling myself positive things. I'm telling myself I am strong, I am fast, my speed will last, and just constantly trying to, another thing I like to do is have a smile on my face. It's kind of like my signature. Everybody's like wondering why there's this crazy person out there racing with a smile, but that's because it honestly tricks your brain into thinking that you're enjoying it, whether you are or aren't. Most of the time I am, but there are points in a marathon or a race where it hurts and you have to dig really deep. So I just put that smile on my face. It usually gets the crowd really pumped up, and it just makes you feel better.
I totally agree with that, and I do the same thing.
Yeah.
So every race picture is either of me smiling or grimacing. There's like no in between.
Yes, and honestly, half the time my smile is a grimace, but like it's a secret grimace.
Exactly. But it is true that we have signals from our, like if we smile, we're actually sending our brain a signal, and that's going to keep us engaged positively in our experience, whether we feel good or not.
Right. Yeah, but just tricking yourself.
Yeah. So can you talk us through, let's talk about maybe your most recent race at the 25K. Can you talk us through what a winning mindset was in that situation?
Yeah, it was really hot. I was alone for the majority of the race. So for me, that was just basically just telling myself to stay in it, stay engaged, regardless of the fact that I was in no man's land. So I was just constantly telling myself that I was strong and that I was going to keep going. And sometimes when things become overwhelming, which they kind of did in the 25K, it was so warm and I started feeling chilly, which is a bad sign in the middle of a race. I just tried to break the race down a little bit and say, okay, I'm going to get to the next mile mark, then reevaluate. And then I'd get to the next mile mark and say, okay, next mile, until finally, thank goodness, you're at 15.5 miles and crossing the finish line.
Yeah. I can imagine that was so tough.
Yeah.
So tough. We talked about like the physical clue of like a smile. Are there other physical clues like to help you with your winning mindset? Like keeping your eyes up, or are there other physical things that you do to keep yourself in that engaged winning mindset?
Yeah, when things start to get tough, I like to imagine how everybody sees pictures of themselves running or like a video, and I like to picture myself in my best form. So I'm trying to use those cues of like pushing my hips forward, dropping my arms. And so I'm trying to create the best form I can in that moment. Obviously when you're tired, especially like at the end of a marathon, sometimes your body doesn't allow you to, but if you're just imagining and like trying to do it the best you can, like it's gonna still help.
Yeah, I found it super powerful to keep my eyes up and not down, because I feel like defeat is when I'm looking down at the ground.
Yeah.
And if I have my eyes raised, I have a better mental attitude and outlook.
Yeah, and I think all together that's going to kind of straighten your back up. You're going to like feel a little bit stronger that way anyway. When I will admit that when I'm going up hills, I keep my eyes down. That is the one time that I'm okay to look straight down, because I don't want to know. I don't want to keep wondering how far up I am, and then once I crest it, I can look up.
Oh, I didn't think about that. That's very true. You don't really want to know sometimes what's coming.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why, like, I think straightaways are pretty difficult.
Yeah,
especially when you're alone.
Yeah.
How do you handle that when there's no one else around? You're alone, but you're still racing. You're still trying to engage. How do you get yourself to stay in that energy?
Honestly, that's just something you have to find within yourself, to just really dig deep and want to hurt and want to grind even though you're alone. And you have to know when you're racing that people might come back to you. You have no idea what's happening if you can't see up ahead, but people die in races, fall back all the time. So you just have to stay engaged and know that you've got to give yourself the ability to put yourself in that position.
Especially in the long distance races. In track, you pretty much know where you are on the track. But then when you're in these distance races, you don't really know how far people are away.
Yeah.
In fact, we were joking, in the last Olympics, I think it would have been nice to have, like, this is how far back exactly the chase pack is or whatever. But they have it on the track. And I was like, well, we can kind of see, but
exactly.
we need this for distance running, for the marathon.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's just so much to unpack when it comes to having a winning mindset. And I love that you discuss this with your athletes. How do you foster that in the people that you coach? Do you, like, before a race, how do you have those conversations? Or
I think it's really important to just have like really positive dialogue. There's no reason to talk about dropping out. There's no reason to say like the dark negative things. It is important to realize it is going to hurt. It's going to be tough, but I like to just really build them up by reminding them they are strong enough to get through it. They've put in the work. They've done everything they needed to, and they just have to find it within themselves to stay strong and remind themselves that they're strong enough to do hard things.
Yeah, that's really great. After a race, when you're evaluating, because we all do, and it's really good for us to do because it's a great learning experience.
Yeah.
Do you apply certain questions to your own races or your athletes' races to help you gauge how you're doing on the mental side of things?
So for me and for all my athletes, that's why I like that ABC goal. I like to have them written down. I always have mine on the bathroom mirror, but I always ask my athletes to send them over to me if they're comfortable with that. And then we can discuss, okay, well, we didn't hit the A goal, but we hit the B goal or the C goal, and we can discuss like what held us back from that A goal, or what can we do better next time? And then, but also what I think is really important is recognizing what you did really great on that day, because that's what's gonna resonate the strongest.
We have to celebrate.
Absolutely.
We have to.
Yeah.
Because when we finish a distance race, just doing it.
Yes, finishing is a win.
It is. It's a win. It's a total win. And there are so many things that we can learn from things that don't go well.
Yeah.
Even the things that are out of our control, how we react to them. Yeah. I guess that brings me to the next thought, which is reacting to things in a race. Yeah. So having a winning mindset when someone passes you. What goes through your mind if somebody goes by you and they inject some serious pace? And what do you do?
For me, I just look at them and I think, like, use that energy, because when you're alone and somebody passes you, that's an opportunity to just latch on and just try to hold on. And even if you're only with them then for the next 30 seconds, if the pace is too hot, that got you out of that kind of low spot, and it got your legs turning a little bit harder, and it reminds you that you've got something else in there. So yeah, I just like to try to lasso onto them.
Lasso?
Yeah.
That's great, because you're turning something that could feel like defeat into an opportunity.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's a super important point that you're making, because having a winning mindset is seeing the things that are difficult as opportunities to help you. So in the competition mindset, that's what I love about running, is that we can choose to have our competition be helpful in elevating our own performances, maybe reaching new heights that we wouldn't have without these really great other women or men around us to help elevate. Can you talk us through what the women's running scene is like in this regard?
Yeah, it's such a weird complex because before a race and after a race, you're like so excited. Like I saw Kira and I was super excited, giving her a hug, talking about her family and her life and all that stuff. And we really connect and we're friends. And then the gun goes off and you're like, okay, well, gloves are off now. It's time to be aggressive. But then you cross the finish line and once again, it's like the immediate like, congratulations. You're never disappointed when somebody does bad because the more like each woman does well, the higher the standards are, and that's just going to pull us all up. And I think we just have this really great community that I get excited to go to races so I can see my competitors. I also want to beat them, but
of course.
But I want to hang out with them and I want to know them, and the more that we do together, the higher that it's going to elevate American distance running. So.
And even with our listeners, other kinds of communities, like we might see our friends on Strava, and they're at a cool comparison game to be able to encourage and support our other fellow runners in community and do our training, do our thing, and not think about what Kira's doing, not think about what Aliphine's doing. You think about what Dakotah is doing and having a winning mindset, and then getting to race day, being confident in your training and your process and your fitness. This conversation comes up so much about like comparison and all of that. How do you, as a professional runner, handle some of that, that negative complex that kind of can be brought into running community?
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, Strava's a really awesome thing, and it's also a really hard thing, especially like watching Molly Seidel, like doing 130-mile weeks, and immediately I'm just somebody who wants to always do above and beyond, and I'm thinking, should I be doing that? Is that what I should be doing? And I think what's really important is to have a coach or somebody really knowledgeable in your life who's going to tell you, calm down, that's not what's going to be healthy for you. You can't go from 110 weeks to 130 overnight.
Right.
So I think it's just really important to have a community around you that's going to remind you to chill when you need to chill, kind of thing.
Yeah, and running is so individual in the way of how our bodies are adapting, how much time we need for recovery, it is such a personal thing.
Yes.
So to be looking at one person's training in the 130 miles and you're like, that's what I need to do in order to be like that, but knowing that we really need to be growing our systems. That's what it's all about. It's very scientific.
Exactly.
So for me to jump to that, I might get injured. So in a race, though, when you're in such hot competition, like women's running has never been better. And you have this winning mindset. How do you get to the line and say, I'm as good as any of these other runners? It could be my day to win. How do you have that kind of winning mindset?
Yeah, I think I have to give my dad so much credit for this. Growing up, I was a hockey player, and our team was never the best team. We were often one of the worst, and he just always reminded me that anybody can beat anybody on any given day. Like, I could have the best day of my life tomorrow, and my competitors could have the worst. So there's no reason, you can't count yourself out before you get to the starting line. So I really have to just give credit to him, because he's always given me the confidence to know that I belong wherever I want to belong. And hopefully someday I'm going to have the greatest race of my life, and hopefully that's at the Olympic trials, and and maybe my competitors don't have the best ones. So
yeah, you're always ready and you belong there.
Yeah.
And really our intrinsic motivation and our goals can really set us up for any situation.
Yeah.
And I see that in what you're doing, and you're competing at the very highest level. I had read that you've had a kind of a progression with running. Like, you've just continually gotten better and better. Can you talk our audience through some of your running journey?
Yeah, so I started as a freshman in high school. I took last in most of my races that freshman year on the track, and I just fell in love with the community side, the teammate side of it. It's not a team sport, but you go out every day and you chit chat with your teammates, and it's this really social experience. And I kind of just fell in love with it in a very simple way, where I wasn't having a lot of pressure or anything. So through high school, just slowly got better by just adding more miles, and I really wasn't running very many miles. And even by the time I graduated high school, I didn't have any recruitment letters from any colleges. I had to reach out to my college coach and ask him if I could join the team, and he allowed me to walk on, which was honestly to me was amazing. I didn't think I was even worthy of that. I got to college, and had that still slow progression just by slowly adding miles, slowly adding intensity, not doing any sort of crazy jumps, staying healthy. And by the time I graduated college, I was a Division II All-American, but still not somebody who you'd say, oh, that girl's gonna be one of the best distance runners, in America. But reached out to my now coach, Chris Lindwurm, and basically just begged him. I said, hey, I'm gonna work my butt off. I will do everything you say. I'll do it all right. And if you take me on, you won't regret it. And luckily he took me on, and I hope he doesn't regret it.
Oh, I'm sure he doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm sure he doesn't. You've had huge amounts of success.
Yes.
Oh, what a story. I love that. And that's, for many of us, that is the story, right?
Yeah.
No matter what level we're at, no matter what our paces are, that we have the opportunity to grow ourselves and progress, and doing it in a way that's healthy for us.
Yes.
I feel like I like to drive that one
100%,
home.
yeah.
And then being in your own story and not being in somebody else's story.
Yeah.
I just see how that, like, as you're speaking and you're talking about this winning mindset, how this has all contributed.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through, you talked about your dad and how he was impactful in your mindset.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else that has been helpful that way?
I think all of my coaches have been really helpful, because I've never in my life felt pressure to succeed because they need me to. It's always been intrinsic. It's always been, I want to succeed because this is something I love and enjoy. I've never had that really dark pressure that I think it's good that I was never super successful through high school or college, because I think when you're a young woman who's really successful, you get like a lot of extra pressure. And I've just been able to have a support system around me the whole time that's really healthy. And if you don't have that right now, you've got to find that support system. If that means leaving your college coach, that's what that means. You've got to find what's healthy for you.
Yeah, do you hear that challenge, everybody?
Yes.
That's actually a really big one. I think that we kind of like brush that off like, oh, well, I can do it on my own. A lot of runners are very self-disciplined and motivated.
Yeah.
And so we think that we can do it on our own. But having such healthy perspective outside of us, and you had talked about, like, no matter what happens in a race, I have people who love me and support me.
Yeah.
I'm not letting them down, because they're always going to love me no
Yeah.
matter what. And they're looking forward to the next opportunity too. And it will come.
Yeah.
Because you
exactly.
trust that your fitness will yield the result
Yeah.
that it says that it will,
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's a really, really important thing. So that's a challenge, all you listeners.
Yes.
Get
Yeah.
that support system around you and surround yourself with good messaging too, right?
I think we're in a time where people are finally willing to speak up, and I hear all these horrible stories that I've never experienced, and they're jaw-dropping to me, that people are going through these things and this like pressure that it should be fun. You should love it every single day. And I feel really grateful that I have it, and I want everybody to have that situation.
And I do think it is more rare and special than we think.
Yeah, probably.
And it does need to be cultivated and fought for, like you were
Mm-hmm.
saying. Sometimes that means making some hard choices.
Yeah.
So I guess speaking of, maintaining this winning mindset, it's not only in training, it's not only in racing, but it's probably encompassed in your life and the messaging that you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
How do you manage things like social media and getting drawn into to other things that could maybe take your mind away from this winning mindset?
Yeah, I think since running Boston in the fall, I led most of that race, and I got a lot of attention for that. I realized very quickly how social media can be a darker place. And for me, I think I read some comments and I was like, oh, that kind of stings. But who is this person behind a computer screen saying these things? Like, I don't know. I'm going to listen to what my dad has to say. I'm going to listen to what Chris Lindwurm has to say, what my friends and my family have to say.
Right.
So when somebody's like kind of like nasty on social media, they don't mean anything to me. If they follow me or don't follow me, I don't really care. If I have 0 followers on Instagram, but I have a family and friends who love me, it doesn't matter. So.
Yeah, it can be a place that we are able to, share good things and we can, add to positivity, but there's also the opportunity for it to weigh on us or like, I think everybody, finds themselves scrolling and wasting time and energy and posture, even physically.
Absolutely.
And did you mention something about sleep? I think maybe when we were talking at the 25K.
Yeah,
like,
that's important to me.
Put the phone down.
Yes. An hour before bedtime, I put my phone away. I'm not gonna sit and be that person who's scrolling, because we all have been there. You can't sleep and you're scrolling, and that's not helping. So. Yeah, I think that just trying to remove yourself from the people who really mean nothing to you is the best scenario.
Oh, that's really good. I think that's another practical tip there.
Yeah.
Put your phone away, protect your winning mindset, not just that, but also your mental health and your well-being and your actual sleep, which is obviously so important as a runner. Yeah, those are some really good things. So is there any other things that you do to protect your winning mindset?
I mean, I think you just have to constantly check in with yourself, because there are certainly times and workouts and days that you're speaking to yourself negatively, and I catch I'm pretty good at it, but I catch myself doing it also. So if I have a workout where I walk away from it and I'm unhappy, I like to take a few minutes to think about, what did I do successful? Like, maybe I didn't hit my times, but I completed the workout, I got the miles in, or whatever it is, because it's always changing. How you're talking to yourself is always gonna go through ebbs and flows of, hey, I'm really great, and hey, I'm like maybe sucking it up right now, but you just have to catch yourself.
Yeah, and I think that is a really big takeaway. It's that we have to be mindful to control our thoughts, right? Because if we just let ourselves do whatever and not be conscientious, we have the opportunity, we have the, I guess, vulnerability of letting things go in our circumstances take us south. You know, and I love this conversation because I do think it takes intentional work to keep your mindset as this winning mindset. Because I think often people are thinking, oh, that's great, you know, think some positive thoughts, but it's actually something we have to be super aggressive about in a way, especially in distance running where it hurts.
It's not always super fun.
No, even when you're super fit, you're testing your limits and you're not going to feel great
all of the time.
the whole marathon long, you know, because you're
Yep.
pushing yourself. So I think this conversation is so valuable. And I appreciate you, Dakotah, for taking the time to share it with us. Is there anything else you want to leave the audience with?
I think that was really great. I think we kind of hit it all.
Thank you, and good luck in your future running. We're going to be following you. You're going to be back here at Grandma's in Minneapolis, so that's great. We'll be keeping our audience up to date.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks to Dakotah for sharing that time with me in person in Minneapolis. And I was reflecting on a lot of things that Dakotah said, but one thing that really stuck with me, I wanted to talk about and reiterate, was the idea that she takes her thoughts captive. It's not a passive thing. What happens in our mind is not passive. Our training physically isn't passive, right? So what we're doing to cultivate positive responses during our race is so important, since, as all the cliches say, the marathon is as much mental as it is physical. So pushing
Something
through,
like that.
which it's totally it's different things, but it's how we process and we analyze what's going on in that race and how we can make it a more positive experience. And I do believe that we'll be able to have that winning mindset.
And I did resonate quite a bit with some of her comments too, about how other people can affect those mindsets. And even just thinking, you know, so in general, we talk a lot about mindset in terms of during a race, but the reality for most runners is that where mindset gets us in trouble is sustained mindsets over our training that are toxic or poisonous to the positive work that we're trying to do. And so in so many ways, it tends to be culminating throughout a period of time. It's rarely ever like, I've got a good mantra for this race and that made all the difference. I probably have a good mindset other times too. Is kind of my point there.
Yeah.
But where Dakotah mentioned how it's important to distance ourselves from negative influences on those kinds of thoughts and mindsets, and it's a constant in conversation. You hear so often that, you know, like the toxicity of other people or something of that nature, but the reality of it is far more nefarious than that. You heard us talk about this a bit when we were talking about our social media episode somewhat and how that influences us. But as we think about Dakotah's comments there, I can really appreciate that. You know, there's this give and take, and we should almost always be willing to give up a number of like surface level positive things that we get from like things like social media or other that kind of stuff. If it's harming us, there's very little gain it's giving that is worth the harm it's causing. And so it's hard to notice that. That's why Andy's comment, like taking every thought captive, it's hard to notice the small and subtle things. But if you're doing what Andy's suggesting and Dakotah's commenting about there, it makes a lot of sense. We can observe those types of things more clearly when we are in fact more attuned with those thoughts.
Great conversation. Thanks again, Dakotah.
Well, let's get on to the world of running. First up in the world of running, as always, let's give a shout out to the A to Z runners participating in some events recently. Congrats to Bill on 3rd overall in the Dow Half Marathon. That's an impressive finish, and especially sweet for Bill as he reversed the results of a past year where he was just barely outkicked and missed the podium, and this time he managed it in a very strong finish. Congrats, Bill. And then a potential PR, although now we're not exactly sure because, as like chip time, gun time, and all those kinds of things start to get confusing, it was, narrow by seconds one way or the other. Very good work, Bill. Aaron, congrats on participating in the Dino Series Indiana Trail 15K and a PR effort on the course as it is. 15K on trail is like not an easy thing because you want to try to run kind of fast because it's not terribly long. But at the same time, you really can't run fast on trails. Not terribly fast, but she did.
She did,
so
and she was first. She took
first in the event.
First place.
I'm getting there. Yes, so great effort, Aaron. Congrats. And then Lewis participating in the 100 mile at the Mohican Trail Race, and I was looking at that elevation profile on Lewis's results, and it's like
nuts.
Holy smokes! I don't really know how you can handle things like that, but Lewis. Congrats on giving it a solid effort, and sorry about the knee situation. Okay.
Yep.
Well, let's hear about some championships.
Yes. There was the Women's USATF 6K Championships. It was a women's only race. And you all know I savor the opportunity on episodes where I get to shout out Kira D'Amato, who won her second championship win. I want to tell you how this race went down because it is so impressive. Like, I still haven't quite wrapped my head around how fast these ladies were running. The first mile was 4:51. D'Amato hit the 2 mile mark in 9:30. Okay, so she put the hurt on there.
Yikes.
And then she charged at the finish, and she ended up in a course record time of 17:52. This is a 6K, not a 5K. That would be a good 5K time, but she ran it for a 6K.
Under 3 minutes a K, folks. So we're talking about under 15 minutes for 5K. We're talking about under 9 minutes for 3K. Like, people who understand those distances and race them.
Right.
That's so fast.
It's so fast. It's 4:48 per mile pace.
Yikes.
The previous record was by Taylor Werner, and that time was 18:21. Set last year. Yeah.
And dragged everyone else through with her, too, as it sounds
so,
like.
Yep, this was a really exciting race. Annie Rodenfels was 17:54, only 2 seconds from Kira D'Amato. Very fast time by Annie. And then Alafine Tulimak, she ended up in 3rd place in 18:08. And she came through in a 5K PR through the 5K. Yeah,
course,
which was 15 flat.
Yeah, so
that's how fast these ladies
anyone
are
out there
running.
wants to try this out, run a 5K PR and then keep going for another 1K at or faster pace.
Yeah. Megan Featherston from Featherston Nutrition, she's been on the show before in the episode Why Does Nutrition Matter for Running? She ended up winning the open race, and she also ran a 5K PR within her 6K race.
Nice run, Megan.
Yeah, so that was really exciting. And to give you an idea of what's going on in the running circuit, the USATF road running circuit, Kira is now in 2nd place because she added more points. So she has 33, and she's behind Emily Sisson. So that will be about 5 points shy of Emily Sisson so far. And Alafine is now standing in 3rd, and she has 32 points. So they're pretty close there. As you remember, the 25K Alafine won that one. Kira took 2nd. So it's kind of fun to see them doing these varied distances. Like Zach was saying, it's so fun because they're not just doing marathons, which is really neat to see. Very cool.
That is indeed. So nice work.
Shout out to one more I want to talk about, Andrea Pomeranski, because she ended up getting a top 10 finish at this USATF Road Racing Championship. So this makes 3 top 10 finishes in the last couple months, and she's from Michigan. So shout out to another Michigander.
That's tough to do. So the U.S. road circuit is just all over the place, both in distances and geography. And so as a result, to really try to nail the circuit well, no one's running all of them, for one thing. It's nearly impossible. It's actually technically would be possible, but nobody does that. So instead they run a few of them, a handful, and it's usually like if I'm a marathoner, I run a few of the long ones, or if I'm a 5K person, I run a few of the short ones, right? But then you have the likes of Kira, who's running like all different distances, 6K marathon,
Alphine too.
25K, Alphine as well. Yep.
Yeah.
And so when you get things like that, then you get a really competitive dynamic across the circuit because people are doing a lot of different types of things. So props to Andrea for trying to just, land several events, and that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Top 10 in many. Good.
Very exciting.
Well, let's talk about the Diamond League. So Rabat
In Morocco,
which is often one of the more early competitive Diamond League meets. So you tend to see early spring racing where it's like they're not going super fast and you're not getting the full swath of athletes yet. Not everyone's traveling yet at that point. And Rabat is one where you often see many of the beginnings of the fast stuff and things like that.
We're only going to talk about one of the races here in the show today. One, because I don't know if all of them have happened. But this one sure did, and it's exciting. And you know how we have featured the steeplechase on the show plenty of times because we find it to be an exciting event, and Zach has some personal history with it. So, Zach, want to take it away?
Unpleasant personal history.
It's fun to watch, though. Isn't it more fun to watch?
Yeah. Okay. So this was exciting because of how stinking fast it was.
Yeah.
Soufiane El Bakkali of Morocco, right? I often forget where he's from. I believe he's from Morocco.
He is. Yep,
Thank you. Okay. So El Bakkali, Olympic medalist, one of the most consistent international competitors in the steeplechase in quite some time.
Yeah.
So he rarely disappoints. But as it were, he won the race, which is great. But he did so in a time, hang on, he did so in a time of 7:58.
Right, and he wasn't the only man to go under 8 minutes. Lamechia Girma of Ethiopia was also running, and they were battling it out, as those two have done, because they are some of the best in the world. So
1-2 in the Olympics last year.
1-2 in the Olympics last year. That's exactly what I was going to say. So it was pretty exciting, and I guess in the end they were neck and neck in the last 100. So it was a pretty exciting race. I don't have the link to watch it, but maybe between the time
we'll keep trying
I'm
to find it.
like, sharing this with you, and when this episode airs, hopefully we'll have it up.
That would be great.
But it was cool because El Bakkali was able to do this in front of his home crowd, which is especially exciting. And he ended up missing his personal best by only 0.13. And Let's Run is wondering if he could have had that if he wouldn't have let up before the line to start celebrating.
Oh, no.
So
that's how it goes.
Don't celebrate too early, folks.
No.
I feel like our World of Running segment often has the tales of do not celebrate too early.
Do not celebrate early. Run all the way through the line. That's actually like the first thing that your college track and field coach tells you when you join the team. Run all the way through the line. And then it's the last thing you hear before every race from both your teammates and your coaches. Run all the way through the line, over and over and over.
And I'm going to remind everyone again, because I saw a bunch at the Bayshore Marathon. Don't worry. They have official timing, so you don't need to stop your watch. Like, you can just run through the line and not worry about stopping.
It's not for the official timing. It's for because it only matters if it's on Strava. And so if the time says one thing and it's not on Strava.
You can manually input these things.
No, that doesn't count.
Input.
Everybody knows that's just cheap.
Okay,
shot.
well, on to our next piece of World of
Third
Running
up
news.
in the world of running.
It's just interesting. The reason why I chose this piece is because it's interesting.
It
is sad. Zach has been in a lot of races where he's been led the wrong direction.
I've been on the receiving and instigating end of off-course races many times.
It's so tragic.
Let me say that again. Many times. I am the wrong person to be leading races. I've led so many races off course.
So this is a total bunny trail, but I feel like I need to share it. We were running the most expensive 5K ever in San Francisco.
Ever. Literally at the time.
At the time, it was the fastest, or it was the most expensive ever. But Zach was leading the race by quite a bit, and there was like a lead bike even.
Oh, yeah.
And
motorcycle, actually, I think it was.
He ended up going an extra block and finishing the wrong direction for the finish line.
I almost forgot about that. Across the finish line, going the wrong way.
Going the wrong way.
And you figure out at some
So
point while you're
weird.
running past a bunch of snacks and drinks, and you're like, why would they put these
This
things
is so
before
weird.
the finish line?
Yeah.
What a weird place to put it. And then you see everyone at the finish line looking away from you, and you think, yeah,
This is wrong.
we did something
This
wrong
is
here.
wrong.
Now,
But
in my
Zach
defense, that
actually
time,
still
I
won.
did not lead the race off that time. I was led off by the lead cyclist.
Yeah, which has
motorcycle.
happened quite a bit.
That
But that's
happens.
what happened for this race.
Here we go.
For this race, it was
Chaos reigned.
in Stockholm Marathon. There were 3. The leading 3 were just pulled off course, the wrong direction, pointed
Not
off
just
course.
a little bit. Not even just a
Well,
little
the
bit.
first time there was 2 times. The first time it was a little bit, and they were able to redirect pretty quickly. And but then there was a second time where they went like over a minute in the
Oh,
wrong
man.
direction, and
Did
they
they
had
just
to
have to
like
just
turn
turn around and double
yeah,
back?
I
Yeah,
believe that's
yeah.
what happened.
Otherwise, it's not valid. So you should know this. In any instance, if a racer is led off course, unintentionally, intentionally, otherwise, if you do not re-enter the course in exactly the same spot, your results are void.
Well, you still won that 5K.
Listen,
But that was not very
it didn't
official.
count for anything, as it were. But yes, my results officially would have been void
Yeah.
for that.
Oh,
yeah.
that's too bad.
Right.
So they ran an extra 1.1 kilometers.
Wow.
But winner of the race, Felix Kurwa, he ended up chasing back because when these gentlemen went off course, they went the wrong way. They were actually passed by
Oh, so
other
they weren't even
runners.
leading
They weren't
anymore.
leading anymore.
Oh, no.
So Felix ended up catching back up. So he's one that was let off course, but he actually caught back up and was able to still win and claim his victory in a time of 2 hours and 11 minutes and 7 seconds.
Let us pause a moment and connect 2 dots, because Dakotah was talking about things related to mindsets. And here Felix is demonstrating a very uncommon factor in mindsets. And so how do you feel? Think about this a moment. When you're training, you're running a workout, how do you feel when it's just not going the way you think it should? Or you're not feeling the way you wished you would? Or you're not meeting the expectations you had? You know, so like even something as simple as you're halfway through a strong workout or a long run and it starts pouring rain. Or, you know, in the winter it starts snowing and getting slippery. Things like that. How do you feel in that moment, right? Nobody likes it, first of all, and nobody feels great about it. But when you're in a race and suddenly you realize that nothing you control, completely outside your control, has just demolished your expectations about the race. Like you literally have to run a longer race than planned, and you're no longer leading a race that you thought you had a really good shot of winning. Very few runners can handle that well.
Yeah. Right. And the other 2 didn't podium, which is unfortunate for them.
And maybe they could have. Obviously, there was a likelihood that they would have if that
one of
didn't
them was
happen.
4th, so he just missed podium.
Oh.
Yeah, so he's probably pretty disappointed. And this is just another kind of sad thing about it, is that Felix likely would have gotten the course record if he wouldn't have been let off
It's
track.
1.1K. Let's do a little bit of math. That's at least 3
I think
minutes
it was like
and 30
I didn't write
seconds.
it down here, but it's like 2:10 is what the
would have
record
given him
was.
2:10 for the record. Oh yeah, would have had it
For
easily.
sure, yeah.
Easily. No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But maybe he wouldn't have chased as hard.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe the adrenaline was surging.
Well,
If you have a story of going off course, I want to hear it. I actually know a few friends who listen to this show who might have some good ones for me, but I'd like to hear, like, what are some races that have gone wrong where you've gotten lost or you were pointed the wrong direction?
have you ever led an entire race off course?
That was Zach.
That happened to me once.
That's like a nightmare.
That was a bad one. Wasn't that? No, I was about to say, wasn't that like the conference championship? No, it wasn't. But it was a very large invitational college cross country meet. And I led them all astray.
Well, on that somber note, we've enjoyed chatting with you. We loved having Dakotah on the show. Thank you so much for all that you do in the running community. Keep working hard out there and train smart. We want to help you thrive here at A to Z Running. So go back and listen to some episodes you haven't listened to yet. subscribe to the show.
And if you're not finding what you need to get to the next step or the next place, certainly we'd love to help more directly. And you know how to find us, AtoZrunning.com. Look for the word coaching, and you can see we have a number of different services there. But at a minimum, reach out. Send us a note, send us a question, send us your thoughts, and we'd love to interact with you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next week.